Welcome back to Rolando Estocada. My name is Rolando, and I wanted to put together this video because I thought it was important to kind of speak to the unifying philosophy of my approach to my own personal development in martial arts and in training in general, in fitness training, athletic training. But then ultimately, my hope is that as you watch the videos that I share in my channel, that it is somehow guided, your viewing is somehow guided by this philosophy that I have spent many years in refining. And I am actually a senior full instructor in Jeet Kune Do under my Sifu Armando Basulto, who comes from the PFS lineage, the Paul Vunak lineage. And when I trained with him for many years, so much of what has guided me and with many Jeet Kune Do practitioners is this idea of having to not just face the realities of combat and the realities of violence, but also the reality of yourself as you proceed through life, and how it is important for us to reach a level of awareness and a level of honesty so that whatever life throws at us, whatever kind of obstacles, whatever kinds of problems life throws at us, whatever types of adversity, it is something that we can face honestly and something that we can bring our full capabilities to. And that can only come when we are honest. So the Rolando Estocada method and philosophy is about bringing a very honest and very much in line with what Joe Bruce Lee used to say, that it is important to be absolutely honest with yourself, because that is the only way you can face adversity, is when you are honest with yourself and honest with the problem in front of you. So one thing that Estocada, which in Spanish means sword, one of the things that the blade arts, the sword, the knife, and any martial art that derives itself from the disciplines and arts that come from the blade traditions, whether it is in an Eastern tradition, the Japanese tradition, the Chinese tradition, the Southeast Asian traditions, or even the European traditions, any martial art that I draw from in my experience and integrate into the channel brings to light the culture, the history, the use of the blade as a tool. Why is this important? Why is this something that I bring so much to the forefront of my training, but also to my channel? Is because the blade is something that keeps us honest. One thing that I have brought into my own training, and thankfully through the instructors that I've had through so many years, most of them, the majority of them being in the Jeet Kune Do lineage, is that the reality-based systems and scenarios, whether it is there's boxing involved, savate that's involved, Wing Chun, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, MMA scenarios, multiple opponent scenarios. The one thing that keeps all of those training scenarios honest, whether you're sparring with somebody with gloves, or you're hitting a bag, or you're in a gi and you're doing jiu-jitsu, or you're training a little bit of Muay Thai, always the one thing I remember in my own training, and something that I passed on to some of my students, was this idea of anytime you find yourself getting into this idea that training is about physical athleticism, which it is a good part of, and how it is about physical ability and proficiency, which it is a very much a part of. Whether you become really good in jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai or boxing or any martial art of your choosing, the one thing that I've always challenged myself, my students, and I've been challenged by my own instructors is this: how will the scenario change if a knife was involved? So if you have a sparring partner who's jabbing and he's out jabbing you, or you're out jabbing him, whatever, but then all of a sudden the guy that you're kind of out jabbing, out boxing, all of a sudden your sparring partner has a knife, how will that change how you address the situation? Or if you're in a jiu-jitsu situation, you're kind of rolling on the ground with your gi or no gi, and you're doing pretty good, you have mount, you have all types of submissions on the guy, but then all of a sudden a karambit is introduced into the situation. Or maybe Muay Thai, and all of a sudden a sword is introduced into the situation. What the blade arts have done And what I hope to deliver in the Rolando Estocada channel, one, swords and knives are really a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun because from a design perspective, from a history and culture perspective, from the blade community that is so all-inclusive, whether you're male, female, young or old, the blade community is a very all-inclusive demographic, which is a lot of fun, and I learned that at Blade Show. But also the fact that through the martial disciplines that are related to the blade arts, you find that it keeps your training very honest. You can't fall in love with any martial art so completely without asking yourself, how would this training change if a knife was involved or if a sword was involved? This is where my own development has taken me to the studies of the samurai, because I think the samurai had a very complete picture of how martial proficiency at a very high level how it's supposed to be. Bruce Lee brought reality in a civilian setting, and I think that was very good because he came up with training methods that were so out of the box from traditional realms that made it very accessible to normal people, regular people like me. But the good thing about where Jeet Kune Do is now, especially with the innovations of Guru Dan Inosanto over the decades once he took over the mantle, is the introduction of blade arts, specifically the Filipino martial arts. So my hope with the Rolando Estocada channel, as I bring more to the forefront, the blade arts, the blade cultures, the blade designs, Filipino martial arts, Japanese martial arts, Southeast Asian martial arts, like Silat, when I bring some of these into the conversation and into some of my videos, I hope that as my audience, you understand that it is a way to, one, have fun, keep your martial training fun, but most of all, to keep your training honest. That anytime you think you're really good at a martial art, ask yourself, hey, if there was a knife involved, would you still approach the situation the same way? But also, if you're thinking you're feeling pretty good in your martial arts training and in your physical training, and some guy wants to maybe get physical with you on the street or maybe mouths off at you, would you approach the situation the same way? Like all of a sudden, oh man, I wanna really engage this guy. What if you realize that the other person also now has a blade accessible to him? A blade is a very interesting tool. It's an interesting tool because it might have taken you years or even decades to really perfect that jab or that jab cross hook, or maybe that jab to the takedown, and all of a sudden you flow to side mount, a nice, Kimura flow. It might have taken you decades to do that. And in order for you to access those skills, you really put a lot of effort and training and focus into it. You might have sacrificed a lot. But a knife is something that is accessible to anybody without training. And in fact, it is a tool of violence that is accessible to anybody. And even any weapon, a knife, a sword, is so accessible now that it is important for us as martial artists to put it in that right context. So as a martial artist, it is important for me to realize that violence is something that is readily accessible to the population. And all of a sudden you get in touch with your own vulnerability. So as these tools of violence can be accessible, and then it makes you feel vulnerable even though you have been training in the arts for so long. It is important to contextualize this so that we can continue to develop, not just as martial artists, as human beings, so that when we contextualize these things, we can approach not just our martial development, but our pursuit of the blade arts in a way that's fun and honest, but at the same time something that gives us life. So it's important to view our martial development and our view of life in general from the perspective of how we keep ourselves honest. So what the Rolando Estocada hopes to accomplish with all of the videos that I put out there is this idea that let's have fun in our training. Let's have fun as we explore the craftsmanship of so many of these blades, the history that they are derived from, the cultures, not just the people who made these beautiful tools, but also the true history of it. That there is a part of it that's craftsmanship, something that is very peaceful and beautiful and serene, and something that is very inclusive, but also the other side of it, which has a lot of violence attached to it. And so once we have this understanding of blade craft and the blade arts, then we can fully embrace it from the perspective of openness, from the perspective of development, and as we move forward in our training. That is my hope with the Rolando Estocada channel, and that is my hope with my own personal philosophy. It is my hope that it is through this spirit of openness, this spirit of learning, this spirit of enjoyment, that this philosophy of Rolando Estocada and my channel provides for my entire audience. That you continue to grow, to be honest and proficient in this path of warriorship through the blade martial arts. Thank you very much. I look forward to delivering more videos, and stay tuned. There's more to come.